Recording started. All right. Looks like we're live here. Oh, cool. Damn, I'm so used to Hangouts.
Right?
It's taking forever.
This
All
is
right.
like everything Hangouts should have been but wasn't.
Seriously. All right. We'll start it off in 3, 2, 1. Bowman here from BWOne. And as the title says in this particular video, if the iPhone 12 comes with USB-C, Android is in serious trouble, and where Android needs to pivot itself is something me and my guest here, Mr. Juan Carlos Bagnell, SomeGadgetGuy, feel they're not moving towards fast enough. So, interestingly enough, first of all, how you doing, Juan?
Hey, doing really well. You mentioned this topic, and I was like, yeah, this is right up my alley. We got to talk about this.
Hey, we actually had a conversation yesterday on Twitter that kind of went deep in with a couple of folks as we were trying to explain the importance of this whole thing. And yeah, I figured.
Doesn't it hurt your soul just a little bit when you're talking to someone who's obviously a tech enthusiast? Like they seem like they care about this stuff, but that there's not a lot of imagination for what tech could be. It's more, I'm set in my ways with how I use my technology, and that must be the way it's going to be used forever.
Yeah. We're doing this live, folks. Doing this live.
I love it.
I forgot the light here on the side. But yeah, this is exactly what you said here. There's this weird sort of like old man yells at cloud sort of attitude towards this whole idea of getting more out of your smartphone. In the Android ecosystem right now, you only have a couple of manufacturers really making these type of desktop-like systems. It is really only one major player making laptops, and it's Nextdoc that is really trying to expand on these things. Yeah. And you look at the iPhone, like we can take a look at what we kind of have here. As far as tablets are concerned, Apple dominates that market fully.
Oh, for sure.
There's zero chance for anyone else to penetrate through in that space. Surface was a disruptor in kind of forcing Apple to do things to make the iPad Pro. They forced them to make the iPad Pro effectively to try and compete and make a tablet sort of work like a PC.
And I feel like Microsoft's big hook here has actually been to diversify the laptop segment more than it really seems to be cutting into the iPad and tablet market. Yeah, I'm sure an analyst with better, a better examination over those numbers might have a different take on what's happening here. But I feel it's, more flexible Windows machines have also helped contribute to a lack of Android tablets being sold. But no one's really given Apple a run for their money right now.
Not at all. I mean, the only people that are making high-end Android tablets is Samsung, and that's because they have basically have their own OS with one UI. Right, they can kind of do this and make effective tablets.
I wanted to ask. I was trying to look this up. I got another question from a friend too, just like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe going from an iPad to an Android tablet, and I had to like pump the brakes. Like, I don't know of any other manufacturers aside from Samsung that even have reasonably current hardware in their tablets right now. I couldn't think of any off the top of my head.
Like it's really scarce. It's almost to a point of zero. I have the Tab S6 over here. I think it's a really nice hardware, great built tablet. Great. Outside of the keyboard thing that we have, I'm getting a third-party keyboard for that.
It does work, but that could have been a little cleaner.
It works if you go to Samsung.com. Otherwise, it's a little otherwise. But I'm looking to grab a third-party keyboard for that thing because I want to cover how the use Diaphragm work from home as well too. Because there's a sort of an idea where both of those actually can work in particular sort of cloud-centric environment. But leading into what we were talking about here, we have the iPad that dominates the tablet market. Then we have last year with the iPhone 11, where Apple really, for the first time in probably about 3 years, really shifted themselves back into the forefront of being sort of the premier phone, especially in sort of the tech space. They're always going to be sort of the dominant phone purchased, but the way it was spoken about when the 11 dropped, it really push the Note back, the Note was a very, very good Note, and a very, very good phone. Yeah. And it sort of pushed that back, and it kind of took the limelight in the forefront. And realistically, outside of a USB-C port, there isn't much that you can say that the iPhone doesn't have or has a competitive advantage against, especially with what they're offering right now.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like there's definitely a price performance conversation when we talk about the 11 Pros. But when you look at what the iPhone 11 delivers, it's a really enjoyable device to use at around that OnePlus pricing territory. I mean, you're not wrong. There are always going to be specs nerds that are going to say, oh, well, the resolution or the OLED, or it should have had 3 camera sensors, that it didn't really need 3 camera sensors, but for some reason we have to have 3 camera sensors.
and almost no common consumer is going to buy the phone based upon any of these arguments whatsoever.
And literally, not only are the general consumers who are a perfect fit for that now more mainstream or mid range. It does kind of hurt my soul that like $700 is now the mid range. But seriously. I think Apple nailed. I think they nailed their price performance ratio, and they nailed their consumer demographics, because of all of the phones that Apple sold last year, the top 2 sellers were the XR and the 11. Yeah. So these people out here whinging on about, an OLED pixel density have zero influence over the rest of the consumer market.
I do say, I believe like the XR got pushed mainly because of how many carrier deals that thing was ridiculously being pushed by.
But what are we talking about with average consumers in the United States? An average consumer is going to walk into that carrier store and they're going to see some stonking good deals on iPhone 11s and stock on shelves for iPhone XRs that carriers are trying to get rid of.
Yeah. But going back into that, they've kind of put themselves in the forefront. Like, I really do think, like we were talking about before, like if they drop a USB-C on that port, on that, where is it that Android has the advantage over iPhone that doesn't have that swaying customer that kind of bounces between both operating systems, or is willing to move on to another space because maybe they know all the USB-C stuff will work, prevents them from going over to the other ecosystem, considering that they might be in a situation where more of their friends and family have an iPhone or an Apple OS device, iOS device, and then you have the synergy between the iPhone and the iPad as well too. And the only thing close to that right now is Samsung, sort of with the synergy they have between their tablets. But then we're still talking about Android tablets that have just limited support from Google themselves.
And I know we talk about, Samsung's execution on this is probably the best in the Android ecosystem. It's still a ways off from what you naturally get in the iOS ecosystem. It still is the sort of pale facsimile. And we're trying to see where Google can actually step up and address some of these issues, things that we've been talking about on podcasts for 6-7 years now. In Google trying to frame that ecosystem argument like Apple's been able to, and they still seem like they're reluctant to cut some of the dead weight, focus, and then iterate on products that would help tie all these pieces together.
I mean, it really comes down to things like DeX and desktop-like mobile operating systems, or the ability to use your smartphone that way, because the power is there. If you ever watched any of Juan's videos, he'll show you that the power is there. The capability is building up and can be more functional. But if you get more people on it, it's building itself up to be sort of that basic to mid-level sort of computing device at that price point.
Generically, I mean, to help illustrate what I'm talking about, I generically in my videos talk about $1,000 consumer slim laptop. I mean, it's one of the most popular segments of laptops. These like 13-inch MacBook Air style machines, they're usually between $800 and $1,000, and you can take a OnePlus 6T and run them through services like 4K video rendering and graphics intense gaming, and that phone is going to squash that $800 to $1,000 laptop experience. Obviously, that's different if you're out there and you're a savvy shopper and you find yourself an amazing refurb deal on a gaming machine with a dedicated GPU. Thank you. That we all understand that. But what I'm talking about are those main daily driver machines that consumers seem most marketed towards. that's kind of pushed under their nose most often. Those Asuses, the ZenBooks, Acer, Toshibas, the thinner Lenovo's, Dells, sort of the base model XPSs and stuff, but the corporate IT machines that get assigned to consumers. Your phone is probably as powerful or more powerful in most of the services that you're gonna run while on the go.
Yeah, and it really depends on your workflow kind of is what
very
matters.
Workflow dependent. Absolutely, yeah.
And it depends upon that, but to me, even at the cheaper level that this stuff can be offered at, to me, it could really change the game for a lot of folks. There's this argument that people won't buy these things. We kind of found out on Twitter, people are kind of arguing against that. And I kind of say it really boils down, I feel, a lot of times to us, one, in the community not really talking about these services the way we should.
Though, you're running into a very poorly framed emotional argument when someone tweets something like, well, most people aren't going to want that. And you're like, most people don't even know it exists.
Since the S8, I believe, Dex has been around.
You've got the Huawei desktop mode, which especially here in North America, Huawei is a no-go. And we're only just now getting the proto version of an Android-backed desktop mode. And I think the only manufacturer who enables a toggle so that you can easily turn it on without going into your developer options is LG. So you're on one of the lesser popular manufacturers.
It's
for a feature that hasn't really gained a lot of traction yet.
And it's really something that's the only real, I feel, game changer that they really have, because Apple's never going to make something like this. It would kill their tablet market. There's no reason for them to even touch this type of thing. But for Android, specifically when you can put this as low as down into a Pixel 3a type device and bundle it with a laptop, which typically costs between $140 and $300, depending upon when, where, how, and who, averages around in the 200s most of the time. But that can be bundled, paired, and sold and given a discount on and put out there. It seems to me that it could be a really easy buy as long as people see it, know what it is, and are introduced to it, and the manufacturer actually pushing it out there, and us as tech reviewers, as technologists, are actually talking and using these features and showing people what it's about. Granted, most of us that are reviewers, this isn't going to be our daily driver. We're not going to use Dex-like things. That's not what it's not going to be meant for us.
The thing that I kind of want to try, and I've been trying to lead by example, right? I'm trying to be the change I want to see in the world. I do not edit any of my family videos on a proper computer anymore. My primary camera is the one that's immediately accessible. So it's whatever phone I'm reviewing. I'm shooting most of my daughter's footage and my family footage from that. Thanksgiving was shot all on an LG V50. My daughter's first haircut was shot on a G8X. When you factor in the time saving of cutting immediately on the camera that captured that footage, it has made less and less sense to take that footage back, import it into some other proper computer, organize all the folders, build the project that way, when I'm so far removed from the event too. I mean, my daughter's haircut video, I think it benefited from the fact that I was editing in almost real time. Like, I was dropping clips as I was shooting them directly into the timeline to keep the flow of that day going. As a creative tool, it was a humongous benefit. And then my parents had a music video set to Janelle Monáe, my daughter's first haircut, maybe a half hour after we were done getting her haircut.
Man,
and that includes uploading it to the cloud and rendering 4K 60 frame per second video. So where I still sit down in front of a proper workstation is when I'm trying to do something a bit more professional than that. But that's also where I feel so much of this conversation has not been held in good faith, where I'm describing a very consumer experience. I want to cut up little videos for social media. I want to share things with family and friends. I don't want to just send a raw shaky cam video of something to my mom. I want to show that there was a little care. a little thought put into what I share with my family, your phone is, I'm not even saying it's as good. I'm saying your phone is a better tool to use under most of those types of situations than a proper laptop or a desktop.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because even had places where I've like, oh, I just want to edit this on the phone because I'm sending it to a family member or a friend or something else, and I just want to chop it or slice it up and add a couple of things to it, and I don't really want to fully go through an editor, but I just want to use the tools in here because it's going to give me kind of what I want. You're just using it right there. But I think what happens with us a lot of times in our community is that we're so used to professionally editing. We tend to forget that. We tend to also forget that we're also, for the most part, better than average shooters. So a lot of things that we will shoot, in most cases, sometimes don't even need editing done to it because we kind of know what we're doing ahead of it. So I think that's where some of this gets lost in, not thinking about the average consumer that doesn't know this type of stuff, being able to learn how to edit and do things like that. I was just speaking to a friend that she's teaching virtually, and they're learning how to edit video right now. And to me, it'd be a huge benefit if they, if she has to learn kind of on the phone and do all these other things, not having to get a high-end machine to do that, being able to say, hey, not only, can you do it, you can plug your phone into this dock and this app will open up with more features for you to kind of easily put everything together and chop it up right on the phone and share it right from your phone with a 4G connection or a Wi-Fi or 5G connection now if you're talking about things like the S20, which I have out of the shot.
So again, when we're talking about that kind of mixed usage, why I've been so disappointed in the quality of discussion that we've been having in the tech enthusiast space is exactly that kind of argument right there. So the person who might be inclined to learn. I mean, your phone is this amazing pocket computer with great cameras, way more horsepower than you're probably using just to cover the basics as an average consumer. And if you're trying to get into something like learning video editing, your toolkit is probably a little bit better than iMovie on a lot of these more robust editing apps. And your phone will finish that video off faster than a MacBook Air running iMovie. So you've got better tools to start learning with. Obviously, that's not the end of your journey. That's the beginning of your journey. And you're gonna arrive at a faster product than what you would get. So why not give us a proper keyboard and trackpad, a larger screen to work from, and use the phone as the brain of that machine, where a $600 phone and a $250 laptop is going to outperform an $1,100 MacBook Air.
Yeah, and it absolutely, Ace, like I couldn't even agree more with that. And then you have a lot of the excuses that kind of go into the place of are the apps going to be as good as the other, as regular OS apps, things like that. I said, no, that's not the point. Like you cannot compare smartphone and tablet and OS apps like that to a regular desktop app. It's very rare you're going to see that.
For this conversation, and especially when we say workflow dependent, that's not a cop-out. I say things like that, and I see a lot of nerds go, "Oh, well, see, I mean, it's not going to work for anyone," because and you're like, that's not what we're saying. When we look at some of these different solutions, I'm talking about some of the finer details. Microsoft Office, the mobile apps have gotten really good.
Oh, they are actually very, very good.
If you're one of these hardcore Office or Excel power users, you probably still need to stick with desktop x86 software. But for the majority of people that are storing this type of content up in the cloud, accessing it through web browsers, sometimes maybe you were using Google Docs or something like that, the disparity, I should say, between desktop and app is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So then, if you're into video editing, is something that we talk about a lot because it's something that we do a lot. Obviously, if you're on Premiere or if you're cutting in DaVinci or if you're using some other editing suite, your tool set is way more robust. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the phone apps that we've got, LumaFusion on iOS, KineMaster, Power Director, these things are all better and more fully featured than the light versions of desktop video editing apps. So there are always going to be some gaps. You know, like if you try and do everything on a Chromebook, you try and do everything on Android, you try and do everything on iOS, there's obviously going to be some people who can't fulfill their workflow on apps, and they need, you know, legacy software support, or they need more robust software that's current. But again, I feel like there is a huge population of people who are going to be perfectly well served by using the mobile versions, because that's pretty much what they're doing on smaller screens anyway. We just want to give them bigger screens and better tools to control what they're working on. And that's really the only major difference I see right now.
Yeah, and getting more value out of your smartphone.
Right. I know most people don't want that. Remember, Warren, we had that Twitter conversation. Yeah. Most people don't want to get more use out of their gadget dollar. That was one of the arguments that was thrown at us, is that they want to pay more and are consciously making the decision to get less functionality. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. The problem, it boils down to something else we talked about with this, and why we really want to see either Google or Samsung really step into making these lap docks. Samsung's made docking stations for this before,
for sure,
but we want to see them make these lap docks, these Next docks, or really embrace them.
At this point, I'm begging anyone. You know, LG has a laptop department. Gut a laptop.
They all have.
Lenovo. If you're telling me any company missed the boat on modular phone design, it's Motorola, because they had a lap dock. They went through Moto mods. Imagine how cool it would have been to take a Moto Z, snap it into your keyboard, and then it powers the whole machine. Could have been amazing. Because again, kind of getting back to what you were talking about with iOS, we know the iPad with USB-C. We'll probably at some point see an iPhone with USB-C.
I have a feeling we're going to see it this year. I really have a real feeling, because of the way things are going in the market right now with everything going on. That might be their one little feature drop that they can put out there.
I mean, like I'm not putting. To me, it's like that.
Either this year or next year
is very likely. The outlier would be Apple holding on through next year with Lightning, and then trying to deliver a portless iPhone in 2022. That to me is like the outlier. Like if you wanted the crazy Vegas odds, that's like the way out there. But I don't think they can. I'm not sure they can drop it this year. I'll be shocked if it's not 2021.
I don't even know if they could do portless, because there's a lot of EU regulations around that I don't know if they could drop portless.
But we also know Apple is the only company that seems to be able to have loopholes whenever the EU says you have to do something. They always let Apple do something else.
Well, they usually have to provide a dongle or something.
And this is also, and again, I love that you phrased this around USB-C, because Apple has already done the work to train their consumers on buying adapters and dongles and these types of accessories. And it is one of the few things that I feel kind of holds the iPhone back, especially when they're trying to call some of their iPhones Pros. Having a USB 2 data connection is really kind of hamstringing the iPhone 11. Even just trying to transfer some files and stuff.
But that's one of the things one reason I'm thinking that maybe not on the 12, but maybe the 12 Pro model comes with USB-C, is the fact of, AirDrop, but being able to plug in directly to an iPad or to your MacBook, USB-C to USB-C, and have that transfer speed or an additional functionality you could probably build into that, I think is pretty huge. And something, that's why I really think they'll try to make that step coming out either this year or next year, and kind of put that out there. And the nice thing about that is, unlike, unfortunately, Samsung, who leads the Android space, which we're going to talk about that, Apple actually offers adapters.
Yep.
Samsung hasn't done that. They didn't do that for the S10. They didn't do it for the Note, surprisingly, and they haven't done it for the S20. And apparently no one's bashed them about this. And I'm like, that is a major thing. Like they just took the headphone jack out and did not provide an adapter. Apple provided adapters for, I believe, up to 2 generations. a phone? A three?
I think the headphone dongle was in the box for the iPhone 7 and iPhone 8. I don't know if it was in the box for the iPhone 10. I honestly can't remember.
No, it was for the 10. I remember that
for the 10.
The 10. It
because
was
I know for the 10s, they saved that $10 that you buy at the Apple store. I know it wasn't in the box on my 10s.
No, it wasn't in the box for the 10s. I think it
wasn't in the box for the 10s.
I think it was the 11 that they stopped doing it.
No. It was not in the box on my 10s. That was a major part of my audio review too. Was like, I'm using the stupid dongle that came with my iPhone 7 because it was not in the box. So,
okay.
So they still had headphones, but those are terrible, and you should never use ear pods. They're awful.
Never. But I like the fact that they at least included something to give people time for the transition, or at least you could buy it. And it was available.
Samsung in 6 months went from making fun of Apple for not having headphone jacks to not even including an adapter in them.
And it blows my mind for a company like Samsung that they would just not have that. I don't get it. I don't get what a slip up is. You would think they would add that adapter in there as by a default thing, instead of making people forward for it. See, with Apple, you didn't have to forward for it. Maybe you had to spend $10 to go and buy it, but it was there and it was available.
And Apple has their warehouse and distribution game down, where it is not very difficult to find a lightning headphone adapter in a gas station. Yeah. Let alone, having to trek out to an Apple store or a Best Buy or something like that.
You could pretty much find it anywhere.
I went through this with my dad because he loved his Pixel 2, but you could not find the Pixel headphone adapter anywhere. And the first place we looked, we thought of, it's like, hey, Verizon partner. Verizon is the exclusive carrier for the Pixel. And the Verizon reps, I mean, it wasn't on them, had no idea what I was talking about. Like, it's not even an accessory that Verizon has a catalog number for that they could search for in their system. And the best that they could do was like, you might be able to find it at a Best Buy, but you're probably just going to have to order it from Google and have it shipped to you. And that's not an acceptable solution. My dad, and I
just thought about something when you brought that up. I think even the Pixel 3a and Pixel 3 didn't need it, but the Pixel 4, I believe, had the adapter in it.
I don't think my Pixel 4 did, because I think the only Pixel adapters I've got the original Pixel 2 adapter, and then I've got the Pixel 3 adapter, and I think the Pixel 4 also dumped it from the box too.
I'd have to look at my unboxing again, but I feel like they did, because I think I called it. I was like, well, wait a minute, they have this still in here.
It's where like I feel bad because I don't do unboxings, so like I'm at this point like I can't remember what's in the box. I've taken so many phones.
Yeah.
I don't have it memorized anymore.
Absolutely. But I think one of the big problems I also see with this, with it being that, USB, we believe sort of a USB-C port can be a really game changer, where it might even affect the Android ecosystem and losing, it could be 10 or 20% of their market share. I don't think that sounds like a lot, but that's not unrealistic that they could get hit with that just by a simple sort of port change that now opens Apple to everything USB-C driven on their phones. Yep. And now adds more functionality, and absolutely manufacturers are going to go for where people are the most. That's just where they're going to go, and they're going to target those things. I think. Well, I mean,
I want people to think about the two different audiences here. You've got people who have iPhones and iPads, and now all of your accessories match. Those consumers are already locked in. They're ready to go. And then I want you to imagine those people that fancy themselves power users, right? And you look at something like an iPhone connected to a laptop USB-C hub, where you get full-size USB ports, a memory card reader, Ethernet access, HDMI output. You have now opened the door for the iPhone to compete against these things that we've been trying to find laptop solutions for on LGs and Samsungs. They work great. I love plugging my phones into larger displays and using them like proper little computers and stuff. But the sheer marketing power of Apple getting into that space, I mean, I completely agree. I would say there's probably about a 5 to 10% market of power user mobile consumers who are going to see that and immediately make the jump over to iOS, because it's maybe it's one of the few things that holds
I think
them
it's 10
to
to,
Android device.
I think it's 10 to 20. I really do think it is, because of the marketing power of Apple. That's what you just said there. That's why I think that's why I think the number could be possibly higher. We could obviously be wrong about that, and it sounds like I'm over exaggerating, but it could be little things like that. Just being able to have one port that works with every single device you need, and not having to worry about having to have something different could really make the change with that. I think that's
You'll
why
have
the
the right
Pros
color bubble with your iMessage conversations, and
but
you'll.
But what I was mostly sort of getting to was, I think with this whole thing, we're seeing the problem with one Android manufacturer overly dominating that space.
Absolutely.
To a point where, and one that just got blocked out that could have competed, but got completely kind of kicked out of the space where they could compete more for various reasons that are not reported correctly. If people know what they're talking about, which most of the media don't know what they're talking about, why everything really went down the way it did. It leaves this space where if Google and Samsung don't push that dock or that extension of getting more out of the computer, and then instead of trying them to buy other hardware, more expensive hardware, to try to have them to have two separate devices, it turns into this thing that, all right, now you have a dangerous space where, now let's say that 12 comes out, and let's say our 5 to 20%, I guess we'll say, range just jump over. Where's the competition? Where's anyone else that can make any type of splash with this? The LG isn't, they're there, but they're not there. The HTC has disappeared in the market. Motorola is completely worried about international business. They have stuff here, but they're worried about international business. Meanwhile, Samsung is in the middle of dumping 5 phones in the US randomly, in the middle of them dumping 3 phones in the US 2 months later. I don't understand that. I don't understand that.
That is one of the major concerns, and it's one of the marketing aspects that Apple doesn't seem too concerned about losing out on some MacBook sales, because they're keeping consumers in-house on iPad Pros. And there is a definite consumer who is going to use and appreciate the experience of an iPad Pro over buying a MacBook or a MacBook Air, something like that. And we've talked about that again in years past, where it would have made sense to bring back an iBook, right? And a laptop running iOS with a better keyboard and mouse. And now we finally kind of have that with
iPad Pro,
especially with these new keyboard covers that they've got. It's much better. So when you look at a company like Samsung has a vested interest in selling you a phone, a tablet, a watch, a laptop, individual computing devices. And it's probably a lot more difficult internally at Samsung to make the pitch, hey, we want to put out a tablet dock so that someone will buy a phone and a screen, and then they won't buy a phone and a tablet. Or, hey, we want to come out with this laptop dock. We have DeX. DeX is this amazing solution that there's almost no hardware to really use it with, but the software is on point. DeX is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's got to be an impossible conversation to have internally at Samsung to say, we want people to buy less laptops, and we only want them to buy a phone and a cheap display and keyboard and trackpad. And then a bunch of Samsung executives go, get out.
Well, I think I wonder with their deeper sort of ties in with Microsoft. If you notice the One UI 2.0 update, they recently allowed OneDrive to sync with the gallery.
For sure.
I'm starting to wonder if they're going to effectively kind of push them into doing that, because Microsoft knows that they have the Surface doing all their devices coming out, but those are more disruptors, trying to see what new form factors work and whatnot. What are people going to do? They're putting that out there. They know they missed a boat on Continuum, but they know this was their baby and their idea. And if you ever go look at videos of Continuum before, that was further along than what Dex is now by like a lot. Like it was literally what
it was just held back by a terrible Qualcomm chipset. I mean, that's it. The rest of the ecosystem was pretty well buttoned up.
If you look at the Surface Pro X and what's available now, that's effectively what they put Continuum into, which was so great about it. But I think their next best thing from their services standpoint and how they push things is to push Samsung to do something like that, is to nudge them and say, hey, we'll make sure Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all of our Office 365 ecosystem apps will work perfectly well with this. We'll make sure it pushes out. And then that could also have some other upward pressure from Microsoft, the downward pressure from Google, because Google knows, well, we're in an odd spot where we can't be the top maker of our own devices. We just can't do that because people, the ecosystem get mad at us to do that. But if we want our software and services to work well in this space, like how we have them making sure they work well on iPads and things like that. Yeah. So I think getting that double pressure from both of them could possibly push them to say, hey, here's the dock, here's this, here's that. Boom.
It's frustrating because we kind of have to look at this as a top-down solution. What I see as a potential would be enough manufacturers sort of playing with this in a way that convinces Samsung that they should do it. And then all of the tech enthusiasts out there will say, oh, well, now that Samsung's done it, it can be a real thing. Now, I never would have taken this idea seriously back when it was a boutique manufacturer, but now that a real manufacturer has done it, it's for real.
I think that's only Nextdox's sort of liability.
Their main play. Yeah,
their main play. I like because I'm waiting for my dock to come. I ordered the touchscreen one, so hopefully it'll get in here by June or July. Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of check it out. But that's really their only crutch of this thing, is that because you can see they got backed very well by I think Kickstarter or whichever one of those things.
Yeah, I was one of those backers. I love my Nextdock.
And you see the reviews have been pretty solid about this stuff. It's really because it doesn't have the name of Samsung, Lenovo, LG, or some big brand logo attached to it, that it doesn't jump off into the next thing.
Yeah,
and I think that's the big problem.
So, but we are seeing these little hints, right? So the company I'm most disappointed in is Google, because their larger screen strategy, especially their tablet strategy, has been garbage.
They're still pushing these Pixel books and Chrome OS, and at the end of the day, it's a failed OS that no one's going to use.
Chromebooks have their little pocket niche, but there's no reason why. Yeah, exactly. But there's no reason why, if I plug a phone into a Nextdock, that I shouldn't have Chrome OS. I mean, Chrome OS runs great on phone style hardware. This is one of those, like, they don't want to do it because Chromebooks still have this little online retail cheap laptop market.
But I don't even think that would even affect it. I think it would help them if they actually called these interfaces Chrome OS. Don't call it Android, but even Samsung Dex can just say Samsung Dex powered by Chrome OS, whichever you want to layer on it. It could be Android or whatever the heck you want it to be. But I think labeling Chrome OS on that is going to actually help that product, and not detach away from it.
I agree with the functionality on the phone. What I mean is, Acer doesn't make a phone, so Acer gets pissed that their Chromebooks are getting eaten into by these other sort of modular solutions. And I think that's where Google is trying to make is acting like this is more precious than I think it really is. I think in the long term, it would actually improve the ecosystem. Like you were saying, it would actually bring the branding to every phone that people buy moving forward. And then if someone wants like a standalone dedicated Chromebook type machine, they're already familiar with it. They could already play with it. I think this makes more sense longer term, but in the short term, you've got to get after those manufacturers that are doing great. So what we see is the competition with, Samsung and Dex, Huawei's desktop mode, and then a couple just weird little outlier or modular experiments. You've got LG, the company I think
Razer, did
Razer. Razer had the prototype, the Project Linda prototype. But then the company that I think is actually deserving of a little respect for trying to expand the phone, not necessarily through desktop mode, but just like we can make your phone more, is actually Asus with what they've been doing on ROG.
People don't realize there's a desktop dock for ROG. Like they have a whole full suite. You drop it in, it's the full and it's a full gaming desktop suite that you can play right on your screen. And I think is it 4K? I think I haven't seen it in a while. But
I never got to review the dock. I only spent some time with the ROG too. But
I think the dock does push out at least 1080p 60. But I think it might actually be able to do 4K. I'd have to look up. They didn't really push the dock that much.
We've got all these companies, and Microsoft included, because Microsoft is Windows on ARM and then Surface Duo. We've got all these companies that are trying to be clever at the periphery. And I feel like we just need a few more of those companies to make direct consumer-facing moves. Then Samsung gets a little nervous, and they come out with like a Galaxy Fold 3 with some amazing connection technologies.
I'm gonna trigger people and keep saying this, and I'll probably trigger our own community. I like foldable screens, but it's just not the solution right now. It's great for testing. It's great to see what is possible. It's great to see these things kind of be out there, but it's not right now. It's too expensive,
too fragile.
The tech, and there's no OS that really gives you, what do you get out of it? Other than telling me you can fold it and it fits better in your pocket. I can have a flip phone out of my pocket, and guess what? And nobody cares about that. Nobody does.
Not only that, I just want people to think back to how they used to use like flip phones and some of these like old feature phones, where every single time you had to like flip open a case. I really like dual screen phones. I'm a big fan of like the V60 and some of the G8X and some of these phones, but not only do I feel like a lot of consumers will dislike the experience just because of I've got to push pause on my whole day, occupy both hands, all of my senses, all of my tactile and visual and auditory senses to operate this device. Can't do anything else. There's no multitasking. There is no one-handed on-the-go kind of use with these things now. And then do the thing and then put it away and then get on with my day. And the whole dream of these connected devices and smartphones was actually improving on these and making these instances less distracting. You go back to a classic BlackBerry and that incredible one hand, one thumb, boom, check my message. And I punched out a quick little reply on these little tic-tac keyboards and popped it right back into my pocket. And I'm right back into the flow of my day. And we're getting further and further away from that with these larger mini bendy tablet things that aren't very good phones.
I think if it was a larger screen on the outside, and it just opened up, maybe, because you could do more functionality on a larger screen, maybe in this compact space. One of my criticisms was like, I remember when I saw the Z Flip, the preview of the Z Flip, and I saw the Moto phone, the first thing I jumped on and said, with the Razr, I'm like, the Razr has a larger outer screen. That was one of the biggest things about flip phones back then. And I was like, Razr just has some supply issues in getting the thing out there to people. But I want to,
because to tie this back though, the reason why we're trying to do these bendy foldy phones is because we want to make more expensive premium devices, and Samsung needs some kind of display tech where they can have the edge. They had the edge with OLEDs for a long time. They don't have it anymore. They have the edge with bending screens, but that's not a very good solution. And everything that we've been talking about addresses the same issue. If you're going to push pause on your whole day and pull out a larger device, a mini tablet, some type of Ultrabook style laptop, why not just have your phone power that? Why not have an even smaller phone for your daily communicator needs? It could be even something, like iPhone 5 sized. Then you plug it into a big dock. It charges up your battery while you use it like a laptop. Unplug it, go back to having your little mini phone experience. This is so much more practical, and it gives consumers way more flexibility to tailor fit the type of experience they need. The Galaxy Fold doesn't offer that. Galaxy Fold is a big, fragile tablet. while this whole conversation we've been talking about how ineffective Android tablets are in solving these problems.
But luckily with them, because they have one UI, they can make it work to be pretty usable. And I get it.
It is better.
I get it. I get it. Pulling out the phone to pull it out to type on a much larger screen to be able to see more and do more with it on the go is a great thing to have. Mm-hmm. However, I think the problem is kind of with that are, one, it's fragile. Two, it kind of proves the outer screen is kind of useless for what it is. And I thought, when I saw it, I was like, that outer screen is small. I would rather them just make a small little box with just notifications and a little ticker in it. Similar
like
to
the
what
LG,
the V20.
Like the outside of the LG. Yeah, well, that's the G8X and the V60. Where they just have the ticker display on the outside. Yeah.
And just give me some quick pertinent information when I need to see it, and maybe a little bit of functionality outside of that, and then open it up where I want to do everything sort of full. And everybody I see I use Galaxy Fold. This is the first function they do. And I'm like, well, that.
And then they're so careful.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's a tablet. That's not a phone. But
you know what I miss is my iPhone SE, where like it was super durable. I had it in a little mini bumper case in addition to the metal back body of it. And I'm running through an airport, pull that phone out, and the thumbprint ID is already opened the phone before I've held it up to my face to scan my face with Face ID. And I'm, typing out a quick little reply. I'm barely breaking my flow, rolling a suitcase through an airport. It's like that phone and the Xperia XZ1 Compact. Maybe the close runner-up would be some of the BlackBerry devices. Everything else forces me to stop, set my suitcase up, both hands on the phone, do the thing, put it back away, grab the suitcase, and start running again. And it's that type of a scenario where I feel like there are more consumers out there than these companies realize who would appreciate having an option in that space. Phones are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
I know.
And I feel like just having smarter accessories
like this.
Like even for that, you could probably comfortably go down. I don't know. Have you handled the V60? Just how big the V60 is?
No, I haven't had the V60 yet.
But I mean, like with some of the larger Galaxies and Notes and stuff like that.
I have the S20 Ultra here, and it's a big phone. It's a big phone. For my own hand, it's like this is a pretty sizable phone that's here compared to the others.
You could probably comfortably go down to an S9 Plus size and not have to worry about having the largest possible battery if you had some smart accessories that could blow up that screen on a tablet frame or on a laptop frame when you needed it. And that's what I'm really trying to get that point across with some of my other friends and family and some of these other tech enthusiasts out there, is like there really isn't a compromise to using a smaller phone. It's just we need to have the infrastructure to properly support it. Oh, well, the battery's too tiny. Well, that doesn't matter as much if you're docking it or if you're cradling it or if you're laptopping it, because it's constantly getting kind of trickle charged back up and you're never completely depleting it throughout your day. It's these little 15% battery bursts up and down. That's still going to put wear and tear on a battery, but your day is not interrupted for having that smaller battery if we can support it properly. And that seems to be the big sticking point, is no one wants to interrupt their tablet and laptop sales when this would actually be a huge
tablet
boom.
Sales?
I don't get it. I really don't.
Outside of Amazon, they're probably selling the most out of Android. They probably are. I'd imagine everybody's got a Fire tablet. They sell them in 6-packs. I mean, right. You don't know this, folks. Go on Amazon. They legitimately sell Fire tablets in 6-packs.
Oh, they're easier and cheaper to buy than rolls of toilet paper right now.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, close to the same price.
Yeah, per roll, per tablet.
Oh man! But I think we've kind of gotten almost an hour here, sort of chatting about it. We probably went further than I would have I was kind of expecting us to kind of go into this space. But I think we had a lot of discussion, a lot of things to sort of talk about here, and definitely in this sort of space that I think no one's really talking about just yet. But by the time they do, it's probably going to be a bit too late because action wasn't taken on it by the manufacturers to make that jump.
This is the thing that we as tech reviewers and as tech commentators should try to stay vigilant about, is not letting 2 or 3 companies completely dictate what competition should look like. And this is where we need a little bit more disruption in this marketplace. And this is where we need some outliers and some funky experiments that can really take hold, and not instantly rush to just calling everything a gimmick just because it's not on an iPhone or it's not on a Galaxy. That's not what competition is. You know, there is a huge opportunity for a smaller player to come into the space right now and shake up our normal relationship with mobile products, laptops, desktops, etc.
It could be OnePlus. They seem to be one kind of company that they could possibly pull.
And they get to play with Oppo's parts bin. They've got some great material to work with.
They'd have just to
tying those last pieces together.
They'd have to sort of ignore their fan base a bit that will fight against that stupidly, and put it there and put it out there. But if they put it out there and get it to all the carriers kind of push it out, there could be something there with that. But
for the rest of the Android manufacturers, if your argument is Apple did it last year and made money on it, so we should do it this year because now we'll make money on it, you've already lost.
I love to see Asus try this again, because they tried this with the Zen Pad, the Zen Phone Pad,
and the Transformer tablet series. And
they tried this.
Asus really does not get enough credit. I mean, they've done so many of these.
And I'd really like to see them even try to push back into this sort of whole thing. And if they don't, better yet, if they don't even offer a phone, but offer the docking station to be purchased and sold somewhere, they're a strong enough brand with a strong enough quality, and people respect that name, that it could really kind of help a lot in this space. But I think we're seeing what we're seeing here, and why we're so concerned about it is we're seeing very few players in the game in the Android space with the ability to move. This is what made it so disappointing about Huawei. Whether you love them or hate them or not, they were going to be such a disruptor in the US market against Samsung that it was going to force more competition, and that needed to happen in the Android eco space. And now we're back to just one kind of major player, some of the smaller players that are trying to get themselves back into that space. And smartphones are dictating.
The longer we stay in that space, the more Apple eats up the market. And whether you're a fan of Apple or not, I think we should all be concerned about one company getting too top heavy. If this market gets too lopsided, that has a chilling effect on competition. If you want your iPhones to get better, you should be concerned about a vibrant Android ecosystem, because that's the only thing that's going to motivate Apple to change.
The iPhone 10, it only exists because of Android, because they quite literally made an Android phone and put iOS on it. Argue with me as much as you want to.
Bite me.
I can prove that. Like, the specs of that first iPhone 10 that came out were exactly what you see in Android devices, and that's what they made. They made their version of that, and that has brought them back into the game and where they are today. But yeah, like we'll see. Hopefully, we don't go into the whole gimmicks thing and things that you were talking about. Although I bet the next thing that we do see in cameras is going to be the whole zoom, pinch to zoom thing that Google got made fun of. Apple will do it in a heartbeat, and all of a sudden it's a great feature. And that'll be the thing. That'll be the next thing that people kind of complain about. But let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Juan, where can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the best place just to catch everything, SomeGadgetGuy.com. Lots of videos up on the YouTubes. I'm constantly arguing with people on Twitter, and we're producing a number of work from home and homeschooling with good tech for Newegg. So be on the lookout for those videos. Trisha and I are putting together just guides, family guides, and work from home guides. Just some stuff that we feel is they're better grown-up conversations to have given the current situation that many of us find ourselves in today. So yeah, Some Gadget Guy around the web, SomeGadgetGuy.com, and then Newegg. Newegg now, and I'm getting all over the place, but still staying in this office, but getting around.
Digitally getting around everywhere, as we're kind of doing as we're doing these days.
We all should be, right?
And definitely. I want to thank you guys if you've gone this long and watched the entire thing. I'm definitely looking at doing more of these sort of podcasty type things. Some of the stuff I might start doing sort of live and just having these sort of discussions here. I guess what inspired me is looking for mics and arms, and I bought one of these things, and I was like, oh, I should have a look like a podcast somewhat sometimes. It just got into the audio game, and it's such a slippery slope on audio and video for video stuff, and I've learned a lot from that. But definitely continue following us here at BWOne.com. Subscribe if you haven't just yet. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, all the other social networks. Links are in the description. And always remember to live your tech world in high definition.
Bam.
Awesome. All right. I think that was good. Let me see if I hit end broadcast,
that was great.
Right? End the broadcast. Yes.